But anyway, after the real attacks in Paris and San Bernardino, California at the end of 2015, Congress passed legislation requiring that all people with passports from Iran, Iraq, Syria, or Sudan apply for visas to enter the United States. And before that legislation, some of the citizens of those countries who also had passports in countries like Britain or Japan could enter the United States without a visa by using their other passport. The legislation that was passed also required anyone who had recently traveled to those four countries to get a visa before entering the United States, no matter what passport they held. Now, 2 months after Congress passed that legislation, the Department of Homeland Security, using criteria designed by the Republican-controlled Congress, added Libya, Somalia, and Yemen to the list of countries from which visitors would be required to get visas to enter the United States, and that equaled 7. Now, unlike the fascist Trump's executive order, the visa restrictions that Congress wrote and Obama signed off on did not bar anyone from coming into the United States. In a political environment, it says here, in which some Republicans were seeking to end the United States refugee program and to bar Muslim immigrants, Obama administration officials said the visa waiver restrictions were the least harmful effort they could support that would satisfy Congress. At the time, Obama's deputy national security advisor said in an interview, quote, "This was really a congressional effort that we ended up negotiating to what we thought was a more rational place." And Obama's deputy national security advisor added that they wanted to focus the law on catching foreign fighters who might have visited those countries. Now, the State Department designates all 7 of those countries as terrorist safe havens or state sponsors of terrorism. But the United States receives more visitors from other nations linked to terrorism. Think Saudi Arabia. United Arab Emirates, Pakistan, Egypt, Lebanon, and several of the attackers were born in the United States. But no matter the facts. And by the way, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the Boston Marathon bomber, was born in Russia. Here's the fascist Trump statement on Facebook, January 29th, quote, "My policy is similar to what President Obama did in 2011 when he banned visas for refugees from Iraq for 6 months," end quote. Obama never barred Iraqi refugees. Never. The fascist Trump is probably referring to action that Obama took after 2 Iraqi refugees living in Bowling Green, Kentucky, were indicted on federal terrorism charges that they were plotting to send weapons and money to al-Qaeda in Iraq with the aim of killing American soldiers there in Iraq. So the Obama administration reviewed and tightened screening procedures for Iraqi refugees, which delayed arrivals, but it never stopped the program or barred refugees from Iraq. In fact, in fiscal year 2011, 9,388 Iraqi refugees were admitted to the United States, according to the State Department. Now, Trump's executive order bars all refugees for 120 days and Syrian refugees indefinitely. Here's Trump's statement again, Facebook, January 29th. "To be clear, this is not a Muslim ban, as the media is falsely reporting. This is not about religion. This is about terror and keeping our country safe." Well, what really happened after he signed the order, the fascist Trump said that Christians would be given priority once the United States resumed taking in refugees. What does that sound like to you? The fascist Trump has said that the travel ban does not target Muslims, and the fascist Trump noted that there are more than 40 majority Muslim countries worldwide that are not affected. But Mr. Trump said in an interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network that Christians would be given priority once the United States resumed taking in refugees. And the liars in the White House press office said the fascist Trump simply wants to give preference to persecuted minorities. And in majority Muslim countries, Christians are often religious minorities. During his campaign, the fascist Trump framed the plan as a temporary ban on all Muslim visitors. He also recently described the executive order as a ban. And according to the New York Times, some religious leaders still think that's his intent. Omid Safi, the director of the Duke Islamic Studies Center, said, quote, "Is the intent of the ban religious? Without hesitation. This is not something I'm having to read between the lines," end quote. Not only are the 7 countries in the ban majority Muslim, all except Sudan are almost completely Muslim. And then Jen Smyers, who's the Associate Director for Immigration and Refugee Policy at Church World Service, which is a ministry affiliated with dozens of Christian denominations, said, quote, "We need to stand up against anything that pits Christians and Muslims against each other," referring to the fascist Trump. And then, of course, religious leaders, both Muslim and Christian, said that temporarily suspending the refugee program and barring Syrian refugees indefinitely shuts the door to the most vulnerable people. More than 3,500 religious leaders have signed a letter voicing support for the U.S. refugee program. And the spokeswoman for Church World Service said, quote, "We are completely opposed to any policy that restricts people's access to protection based on their religion." Another kick in the fascist Trump's groin. You know, I'm sure I've been saying this every night, but I just wonder how long this can continue. A steady diet of Facebooked or tweeted lies, not just by Trump, but by his press secretary and his White House counsel, the miserable Kellyanne Conway. Now, there's something I'm sure that you know, and if you don't, it's very obvious once you take a look. What's being said by Trump is not coming from Trump. He wouldn't know Syria from an ice cream cone. He wouldn't know Lebanon from a tree stump. This man is incredibly ignorant. I mean, fantastically ignorant.